The goal when I launched the company in 2017 was always to get it into Creed. I'm on set with Michael B. Jordan. He loves the tracksuits. We'll take the gloves, we'll take the boots, we'll take the head guards, and you've got 3 months to deliver. How are you gonna do that? I was like, I got no fucking idea, but we need to get it done. And the trailer comes out, and then he's wearing 2 of the tracksuits in the fucking trailer.
So you've been boxing. How does it actually come about to be like, I want to make boxing gear?
I was training for a fight at the time. I remember just feeling that I wanted people to know I was training for a fight. You look through history at the brands that have really made it, right? They all start off with a niche sport. Been done with every sport in history apart from boxing.
I feel like you've had the entrepreneur gene in you from a very young age.
Everyone's trying to chase being the entrepreneur. Business is too hard for you to be doing something that actually doesn't excite you. You know, I got in trouble with the police, not long before that. I got stitched up by some friends for a crime I didn't do. They even said to me, look, Ben, you're going to jail for 7 years. And I remember I just dropped down on my knees and in tears in the court. Then you want to keep trying to sell cars for the rest of your life, or do you want to really try and do something that could change the world?
Hey guys, before we get into this episode, I just want to say the more subscribers we get, the better the guests are. People come on, the bigger our channel is. So if you want more conversations like this on how people did it, subscribe now. It would really help a lot. Enjoy the episode. We were obviously having a chat about big entrepreneurs and kind of cool stories off the back, and that's why we've got you here. Can you give a little summary for people that don't know Boxraw or don't know you?
Yeah, so we founded Boxraw in 2017. The vision is to be the reason why the world got into boxing, and really try and shift that narrative away from boxing being viewed as like an elite sport that only someone can partake in. It was very much premised around the journey of boxing, which I think up to that point hadn't really been talked about. All the brands that came before us just focused on the end result of boxing, which was the boots, gloves, shorts, and then the glamorization of fight night. But actually, having grown up in a boxing gym, from the age of 12, I knew that boxing was so much more than just the end result. It was very much around the whole mindset and lifestyle around it. The vision was to try and bring more people into the sport of boxing. Naturally, we have to start with apparel. The vision's much bigger than just apparel business, and equipment. So we've got technology company and arm we're working on the side on at the moment. Been working on that for about 3 years now.
And what sort of technology?
I can't speak too much to it. It's very, very long story short. It uses AI technology and computer vision to track skeletal positional data of boxers, and then uses that to inform insights and analytics for boxers, coaches, and basically the whole boxing ecosystem.
When are you planning to launch that?
It's at MVP stage at the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
Launch, I think the product roadmap, because there's so many products within the product, it's not just like one piece of software once it's done. So we've got like a 7-year product roadmap, so the features that we're going to be able to go to market by the end of next year, I'd imagine. Okay. But it's been very progressive after that point. So, okay. Say 3 years in the making.
And from what I understand, Boxraw was recently the boxing wear that was used in Creed 3.
Yes.
Which is sick.
Creed
Let's
3,
just
Creed
call
3,
it what it is.
Creed 3 and Creed 2 actually.
Creed 2 as well?
Yeah,
wow.
Creed 2, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so how did that come about?
The goal when I launched the company in 2017 was always to get it into Creed.
Was it?
Having grown up watching Rocky,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, we need to get Boxraw in there because right now he was wearing the Creed 1, he was wearing Jordan, Nike. It was just simple, I went onto IMBD. I mean, the thing is, when you're starting out, right, you don't have any resources or contacts, so you just have to think. And I'm a hustler by background, so I'll find a way to get shit done. So I went onto IMBD, found out who the costume designer was, reached out to her on Facebook, spent about 6 months speaking to her. We became very friendly, and she's a great friend now, Antoinette. And then news came out they were filming for Creed 2, so I was like, okay, let me reach out to her now. I said, look, any chance of featuring Boxraw in Creed? And she was like, oh, I'm not working on the new one. I'm like, fuck, I spent 6 months trying this angle and you're not working on it. But she then very kindly made an introduction to a product sourcing company out in LA who put brands into movies, and she said, look, I'll make an introduction, but they might charge you. I was like, well, I ain't got any cash, but okay, I'll take the introduction. Spoke to them, we became friends, Kat and Adam Stone, and they were like, look, Michael B. Jordan's sponsored by Nike, so while we can't force him to wear it, we can at least get on an extra. And for me, that was goal complete. I was happy with that.
Yeah.
So we sat on line list. They placed a load of orders for products, delivered it, and then around 2 weeks later, it was a Thursday night. I remember at this point because we hadn't been doing much business at all in America. So American was ringing me about 11 o'clock. Pick up the phone. I won't try and do an American accent. He's like, I'm on set with Michael B. Jordan. He loves the tracksuits. That's some of the actors wearing. Do you reckon you can send 2 sets for him for Saturday? I was like, and they were like, but we can't pay for shipping, and inside I'm like, why? It's fucking sick.
Yeah. I'll make it happen. That's fine. I'll make it happen.
I'll sort the postage and packaging.
On the phone, I'm like, don't worry, I'll allow the packaging costs on this instance. Right? At that point, I'm still like, to the outside world, Boxraw was still a very big company, because we had a large Instagram following from the get go of launch. Right. We launched 20,000, and it grew very quickly within the community.
We'll touch on
I was going to say we'll touch on that later.
And agreed to send it over, sent it off. And then I was in Liberia on a mission trip with our charity, Boxing is Love. And the trailer comes out. And then he's wearing 2 of the tracksuits in the fucking trailer.
Oh, no way.
I was like, wow. I had no gauge. I had no idea about who was going to wear what. And the movie came out and he wore that in Creed 2. And then but at this point, I hadn't got any direct communications with him or the team. And then in 2019, I want to say, or 2020, news came out that they were filming for Creed 3. I thought, okay, this is an opportunity for us. And now we're in a different situation because, one, our product offerings expanded completely.
And Michael likes it.
I know. Well, this is an interesting thing, right? So a few months before that, the Daily Mail were posting photos of him wearing Boxraw, saying Michael B. Jordan training in this hoodie or training in this sauna suit. They're never tagging us, Daily Mail.
Okay.
Like, you can very clearly fucking see Boxraw.
Yeah,
They just say he's wearing this thing. And then we were like, okay, where's he got that from? And obviously we checked the database, found out he's a customer. And I then went to literally every single person in his network that I could think of and started to try and build relationships. And then when the opportunity came to speak to him, a half an hour phone call turned into like an hour and a half, and we just hit it off instantaneously.
Awesome.
He loved the vision, loved the clothing, and he loved the equipment. At this stage they had a deal with another glove company, and I was aware of that, but I was also aware of a lot of tension between that, because I know that I need to be careful what I say here, but I know the owner of that company pissed a lot of people off basically.
Right.
So I got it in there, explained the innovations, and he loved what he saw. The reality was what I was showing him a glove that had been developed over 4 years, but it still wasn't final. And I knew it felt shit inside, but then he was like, right, we'll do it all. We'll take the gloves, we'll take the boots, we'll take the head guards, the groin guards, and you've got 3 months to deliver. And I was like, yeah, no problem. Put the phone down, called up Ella, our product engineer. I was like, right, we've got 3 months. She was like, how are we going to do that? I was like, I got no fucking idea, but we need to get it done. And then we had to move production from China over to England because it was taking too long in China.
Right, okay.
We essentially moved into the factory, the same factory to do Bentley Motors, interiors, things like that.
Wow.
And I literally lived in that factory for about 3 months trying to get all these products made. I'm talking about the equipment.
Yeah, of course.
And they placed an order for about 215 products. So a hell of a lot of products. And it was a very stressful period.
I bet.
Yeah, my health took a turn for the worse during that period. I got diagnosed with Meniere's disease, which was fine now. It was actually a big wake up call. But,
What is Meniere's disease?
so but I used to get random attacks of vertigo.
Right.
So I could just be sitting there and suddenly the room will start spinning. And then it got to a point where it's happening 5 times in a day. It happened once when I was driving, then I crashed.
Oh my God.
And I was like, right, okay, I need to put my foot down and get it fixed. And they basically said, look, there's no cure. The cure is less salt-free preservatives, more sleep, less stress, do meditation, and no coffee. Did all that instantaneously, and then...
And no coffee?
No coffee, yeah. And then instantaneously, it fixed itself, and it hasn't come back since. So there was a lot of learnings from it. But yeah, we delivered all the products on time. And yeah, it was great for exposure.
I was going to say, what kind of thing, like, when you do something like that, like one of the biggest movies of the year, one of the biggest action stars in the world, wears your brand, can you track the conversions? You can't track them directly, I guess.
Yeah.
But, was it like, the day after Creed 3 comes out, sales skyrocket, or is it over a month you notice the gradual, like, how does that look?
Yeah, it was a bit of an anticlimax, to be honest with you. I had these grand visions, because I do a lot of research into other companies and understanding how they blew, and Under Armour is a great example where I think it was Any Given Sunday where their products were first put out and the world saw for the first time, this apparel which was stuck to your skin, and their sales, 10x, in the course of a year. So in my head I was like, oh, this is going to happen to us now, because we were featured on the movie poster, everything.
Okay. Wow.
And everyone was saying, oh shit, I've seen Boxraw gloves now. We had a collection with Creed, so the official Creed collaboration that sold out instantly. That did great. There was an uplift in traffic, general uplift in sales, but nothing so sustaining, whereby it's like, okay, that's made all the difference to us. I think more than anything, it's the brand perception and maybe just a thing to hang your hat on, really. I think more so just a life goal. I really wanted to I really wanted to get on the movie poster. Really wanted our gloves to be featured in the movie and the boots, and that all happened.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt. If you're enjoying the episode so far, please consider hitting the like button. It really helps us out when it comes to growth, and it will tell YouTube that we should make more content like this. So you've been boxing. How does it actually come about to be like, I want to make boxing gear?
It came off the back of another business I had, which was a mobile phone app. It was essentially, I had a mobile phone app called Effigo, which was on the App Store.
Effigo,
yeah. And it was essentially Instagram stories and Snapchat stories before they came out.
Okay.
Within the first 3 days of launch, we hit the top 10 US social networks. By day 5, we dropped down to top 60. And the 2 co-founders I was working with said, look, we don't think this is going anywhere. We're going to go back to our jobs respectively in Paris and New York. One was working in investment banking, engineering, tech engineering. The other one was working in private equity. And it really broke my heart because I spent 2 years building it with them. They moved in with me at my dad's house for 6 months before launch. And I put everything into it. And then giving me that news really, it threw me almost to rock bottom. I spent so much time and energy talking about this app and getting people on board with it on beta modes and so on.
How old were you at this point?
I would have been 25, something. I'm 32 now. I would have been like 24, 25. 5 days in, just to have that taken away from you, it was the worst feeling in the world because it wasn't a situation I could control. I can't force someone to work with me. I can't force someone to carry on this idea or the vision and keep it alive.
It's tricky.
I was very much at the disposal of them. And that for me was like a big wake up call, first of all, to not have a company or not be in a position whereby my success was predicated on somebody else's involvement or their point of view. So I was like, right, okay, I'm not doing anything like anyone else again. And it was strange because every business before that was always on my own. From car sales businesses to import export. With the car sales business, I hired my brother. He worked with me on that as an exception. But yeah, with the app, it was three of us, three ways. All of us were equal parties and equal ideas and so on. Yeah. And I realized now that's not me. That's not how I'm built. So
by the way, just to cut in there, were the businesses before, like the car sales and import export, were they successes or failures?
Many successes, many failures. Yeah, probably more failures than successes. The car sales was successful, and actually that's what I used to
fund the app.
I fund the app and then also fund Boxraw.
Right.
So we've taken no investment, and that was all off the back of the car sales business. I've been working as a mechanic for my dad from the age of 12. Okay. And then even at university, I was fixing cars, and then post-university, I started the car sales business, and I did about 1.2 million sales at the age of 22.
Wow.
Okay, wow. That was like, yeah.
And is that just you buying cars at auction and flipping them on Gumtree and Auto
to a degree. My speciality was I can't remember the name for it now, but back then it was called Cat D and Cat C cars. So it was accident damage cars. So I'd buy cars that had been in accidents, fix them, then repair them. Then I got to a point whereby there'd been a huge influx of Afghani and Kurdish mechanics into Coventry, and they were also cutting onto the same thing, but what they weren't able to do was sell. So I had the best business model to this date, whereby they would buy the cars, repair them, and then I'd basically sell them for them. So they give it to me at basically dirt price, real cheap, and I'd add £1,000, £1,500 margin onto it. And then, I wouldn't have to pay for it up front, and then I'd pay them once the car sold. Wow. So it was a great model, and I just churned cars.
So you did the app, that kind of, went south.
Yeah, and it was off the back of that. It was the same, it was a week after. So this was on the Friday where it happened. I think it must have been the next Wednesday. And I was running down the street. I was training for a fight at the time. And I was wearing this Adidas tracksuit. And I remember just feeling that I wanted people to know I was training for a fight, right? I wasn't thinking about business whatsoever. I was like, I'd love for people to know that I'm a boxer. And as I was thinking, as I was running, I was like, wait, there isn't really a brand that represents boxing. As I said at the very start, the brands that came before us, they were just focusing on gloves, boots, shorts. No one really concentrated on like the apparel side of it. And that was my way in. I was like, actually, this could be something. And it was literally instantaneously, like off the back of that. I remember I spoke to a friend from university the following Friday after the app had basically gone down. Saying, oh, no, I'm working on this new company now. It's called Boxraw. I'd already had the name because it was actually the name of another company I had that was doing boxing promotions and white collar events for charity. So I was like, we can use that name. She's like, oh, you're just changing business all the time. And I was like, yeah, this is going to work, So every business I've done, I've gone with the intention it's going to be a success.
Yeah.
So even to say, what was the failures, what the successes, they're all successes in their own right because the amount of learnings that I've took from them. Financially, only a few of them were, did all right. The majority of them flopped. But
with those businesses, I mean, the ones obviously before Boxraw, how did you know it was the right time to move on from that business?
Oh, with the app, I had no choice, right?
Of course, the app, you had no choice.
Two co-founders gave up. But the car sales business was still running at the same time. Now, with the car sales business, that was always making a lot of cash. But very quickly, I realized that it wasn't something that made me happy. It's a lot of, and it's not the hours that I'm complaining about, but it's just, it brings out a character in you, which isn't really me. In the sense of you're having to try and sell something. Like people would come sometimes to buy a people carrier and I'm selling them a hatchback. Right. And I know that really deep down they should be taking a people carrier. I don't have a people carrier though, so I'm going to sell you the hatchback.
Yeah.
And it's you really start to question your morals and whatnot. And then I think also just the stress, it's selling accident damaged cars, you actually attract a lot of trouble because you get fake ballers that come because they're buying a BMW or Jaguar or Range Rover from me because they're saving £15,000 off the retail price because it's been an accident. So you track that sort of those sorts of people, and I just realised that this isn't me. Fundamentally, I'm still always just a car salesman. And I think what really opened my eyes to like the bigger picture of the world was the app, because I remember Leo, the co-founder, and it's funny actually. He's co-founded a company recently which is like boxing tech.
Okay.
But yeah, he called me up one day. I remember so specifically, I was repairing brake discs on a car, calls me, says, Ben, you want to keep trying to sell cars for the rest of your life and change your oil, or do you want to really try and do something that could change the world? And I was like, pwah, that had just hit me. And I think that was like that time where I was like, shit, the world's much bigger than just doing cars. And there's many other things as well that really opened my eyes up and so on. And I was, I got in trouble with the police, not long before that. And I remember I was in the south of France on bail, thinking I was going to jail for 7 years, and we can go into that.
I was going to say, yeah.
And I just saw a different side of life. I met a lot of different business people that showed me that, life's much bigger than, the car sales company, which ultimately was capped at about, 10 million revenue a year. Like, there's only so much I can make from selling cars. And money wasn't necessarily the goal, but just the idea and notion of seeing that shit, the world's much bigger than just Coventry. Up to that point, I hadn't done a lot of traveling, and I had got to a point whereby the business had got to a certain state of notoriety and, became recognized, within the Coventry space. And for a short period of time, that feels good. But then again, you explore in the world, and, I was in Cannes, in the most expensive hotel in the south of France, and you start to realize
there's a whole world out there.
There's a lot more out there, and when you speak to people, you realize actually their motivations, and it was quite inspiring for me. But that was like a real big pivotal moment.
What was the troubles with the law?
It was, it's quite long. I'll try and dumb down the story because it's quite a long story, but long story short, I got stitched up by some friends for a crime I didn't do, and I got done for perverting the course of public justice. It was essentially, I was passing notes between someone who was in prison to someone who wasn't in prison, who wasn't meant to be speaking. And I didn't realize that was a crime. It was basically two friends that were in a relationship. They got into a domestic, not physical, but because of his previous crimes, he was not allowed out there. So he was stuck in jail and bail for 9 months because his bail wasn't allowed. And he'd give me a note to give to her. She'd give me a note to give to him. And I was doing that, not realizing that's a crime. And then she got caught. She got scared, said, "Oh, Ben's been forcing me to do it." So they first did me for witness intimidation. That went on for about a month, and then they realised they had nothing on witness intimidation because she'd been texting me and so on, saying, "Look, can you give them this note?" But then, because I was quite cocky with the police, I think they tried to take it one step further, and then they got the Crown prosecution to raise it to perverting the course of public justice, which means you're essentially stopping the law from being a law. So all that money I've made in the car sales business is now going into barrister fees.
Oh my God.
Basically just to try and keep me out of jail. And they even said to me, "Look, Ben, you'll go into jail for 7 years. The minimum sentence is 3 years. We're going to try and get it down from 7 closer to 3, but you're done," basically. And that 9-month period, I was working on the mobile phone app at the same time. This is when I flew to the south of France thinking, I'm done, let me blow all this cash. And I was hit with the second chance of life in that one of the witnesses moved to Australia, so wasn't able to take the stand. So the Crown prosecution dropped it because they didn't have enough evidence.
Wow.
And I remember I just dropped down on my knees in tears in the court, and then the judge was shouting at me saying, "Stand up," and he's shouting at Crown prosecution saying, "No, it's an outrage to the court. You get on a video link, such a waste of time and money." And I'm just like, "No, shut up, man. Just let me get the fuck out of here." And the Crown prosecution were like, "No, we're dropping it." And that was it. I had the second chance at life, and I turned my back on a lot of friends that stitched me up and weren't there for me during that time. And again, I was working on the mobile phone up at that time, and that was like, right, I'm focused now.
So you go through that period, and you come out the other side of it. You're running, you realise there's no boxing apparel, and you're thinking, okay, that could be good. So how do you physically get started with Boxraw? How do you make it a reality?
Yeah, so after the app, I was still working in the car sales business. My brother had been running it at that point for me and bringing all the cash in, and we're selling it, using it to fund the app. So I went back into work in the car sales business, and I suppose every morning, I'd wake up about 4:00. And I'd be working, I'd be on Shopify, reading all the blogs on YouTube, just trying to consume knowledge. I was quite naive in the sense of I thought it would take me 3 months to launch. So I had a lot of experience at Alibaba at this point. So at the age of 15, I got into Alibaba. In fact, I'm the youngest bronze buyer in Alibaba history. So I was buying up to 10,000 units a year at the age of 15, 16, so from USB sticks, MP4 players, blenders, microwaves.
Where were you selling them? eBay?
Yeah, where were you selling them?
So I sell them through eBay. At that time, when you're 15, 16, pawn shops were a big thing, and also independent electrical stores were a big thing. There wasn't like now you go to Currys to get your electronics, or you go online to Amazon. Back then, you're happy going to like a independent shop. So it was easy for me to. I'd call up, pretend to sound like an adult, be like, my son's gonna drop off some microwaves or blenders and so on, and I'd just rock up the boxes and I'd sell them.
I feel like you've had the entrepreneur gene in you from a very young age. And you've been doing this for a lot longer than just Boxraw.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah. So it's all I know, which is why I'm fortunate now where I get to merge two passions, which a genuine passion of mine is business. But money's not the goal. The goal is just business. I like being able to create, innovate, and put things out to the world that haven't been done before, or being able to try and serve a need. And obviously with boxing, there's so many reasons why I love the sport. So I'm very fortunate now. But I've been doing it since I was 12 years old. It was but without even knowing it. So my mum used to give us 50 pence emergency bus fare to get the bus when it was raining. Otherwise, we'd walk to and from home, to school. But always before school and after school, friends would be at the newsagents buying sweets, chocolates, crisps, drinks.
Yeah.
I could never do that. And I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder from that.
Me too.
And I suppose one day I'd use that money in the 50 pence thinking she's not going to notice it. Bought the sweets and chocolates. Literally the same day, man, my mum was like a hawk. She would have checked my backpack and saw the money wasn't in there. Hits me over the back of the head, said, look, we can't afford that. You only use that in an emergency. And I don't know what it was, but just instinctively the next day I was just walking to school again with the 50 pence in my backpack, going to the newsagent with my friends. And I noticed that, do you remember the sherbet sticks?
Yes.
2 pence. They're obviously, usually the box is full. This time I must have been like, I don't know, 40, 50 in there. I was like, okay, this is interesting.
That's a popular item.
Yeah, popular item. So I bought 25 of them, and then I sold them in class in registration for 10 pence. And now I've got the 50 pence to share with my mum, and I've suddenly got this profit to buy the sweets and chocolates and crisps and candy and whatever. I was like, this is easy, man. So I just kept doing it on a daily basis, and everything from sweets, chocolates, cigarettes. Got to the point where I was going into town into a place called Home Bargains. I'd buy like J2O bottles, sell them at school, and I was making good money from it. But that idea just like materialized over time. I was like, okay, this idea of buying something, selling it for more, it works. It's a little bit harder now because there's so much transparency in the market, and information is so dispersed that model isn't as easy to do now. But all the shit you see now with ads saying, look, do this dropshipping company and Amazon. I've been doing that since back in the day, man.
Were your parents encouraging of this?
Yeah, my dad in particular, like my relationship with my dad, at a young age was very transactional to a degree, in the sense of he was a mechanic, had his own business, and it was very much, he just wanted to know how much I made each week. So when I saw him at the weekends, how much we made, when I was with his friends, is Ben, tell him how much you made this week, and that was like, for me, that was the thing I was just aiming for each week. Let me see how much more I can make. So, because I like it when he asks me, and I can tell him how much I've made.
So cute.
And then, it just got to a point where that just, again, continued on. I think that's probably the part of the reason I am the way I am. Like, nothing was ever good enough, even when it came to grades. It's like, Dad, I got all A's, was at the top of the class, though. That's all he cared about. He just wanted you to be the best. It didn't matter that you did good comparatively to others, or, it was just like, you need to be the best. Without saying those words, it was like, unless he got clarification that was the best that anyone could have got, or that's the most that I could have made, it was never good enough. And it wasn't in so much of like a depressing way, but it's just like that became the expectation. Mom was aware of it. I mean, they had to be, right? Because I had so much product, from clothing to random white coloured appliances.
I think you're saying because I had so much money.
Yeah.
Boy's pockets was fat. Mumsy had to know. I was breaking off a little piece for her. So, okay, what I was going to say is, so you got started with Boxraw. I think what a lot of people are always curious about with apparel companies is what's, the minimum you can start with, and how do you go about getting it made? Because I think, now you have print on demand. You can like t-shirts where you can just get a logo or a design imprinted and it's done. But actually designing a custom piece of clothing isn't the same as just printing a logo on a t-shirt. How do you go about doing that?
So, I also think, in addition to that as well, like how you actually start building a brand alongside that, how you actually come up with formulating a brand and actually putting that into the market, because that's the difference maker.
So I think the first part of it with a brand, before you even get into any of the clothing, is you first need to establish what the brand stands for. And in this day and age where there's just so much saturation on people's news feeds of like new brands that are starting up, it's all the same shit. It's just a new design. It's like they change the font, change the colours. Like the brands, I mean, you look through history at the brands that have really made it, right? They all start off with a niche sport, first of all. I'm excluding fashion brands and luxury fashion houses here. Okay. I'm talking about sportswear brands. You don't just set out in the market, well, they haven't just set out in the market to be the all-encompassing sports brand, When Nike started out, they were just focused on apparel. They were just focused on athletics and running, you see, and that was their niche, and they built the whole niche around that and built the community around that. You look at Under Armour, it was American football. You look at Adidas, it was soccer. You look at Vans, it was skateboarding. Montclair, skiing, right? It's been done with every sport in history apart from boxing.
Wow, I'd never thought about it like that. I thought about Nike, but Adidas was soccer.
Yeah, you need to think, and I say soccer because we deal so much in America.
Sure.
I'm used to saying soccer now.
And Under Armour was American football.
Yeah, it was.
And Montclair was skiing. I never thought about that.
So there was no, because if I think of boxing, I think of Boxraw, Lonsdale.
I think of Lily Whites.
Lily Whites as well.
Lily Whites? Who the fuck are Lily Whites?
So there was a massive Lily White store in Piccadilly. I don't know if it's still there or not, but they used to sell loads of boxing.
Like 15 years.
Yeah, they used to sell quite a lot of boxing apparel.
But Lonsdale, I think of Lonsdale.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they started with boxing.
I think a big distinction between, there's been many brands that have come before us, in the space, like Lonsdale, Everlast, but what they've their success has been their demise, right? In the sense of they haven't kept up with innovation. You look at the brands that have been here, for a long time at Nike, they've been at the forefront of innovation. So they're always trying to like improve the wearer's feel, with tech and with, further developments and innovations. Those brands haven't. They've just, of course, they've stayed there in the Stone Ages, and they've just sort of latched onto that legacy which they once held. I think with Boxraw, a big thing for us is that all of our products are built with intent, and that's actually, we serve natural needs. So when it comes to building a brand, the first step is like find that niche that you're going to go after and really try and serve them, and add value to their life. The idea of just creating a clothing brand, I'm like, what do you mean a clothing brand? Why do you just want to create a clothing brand? Like, what need are you trying to serve? For me, I was trying to serve the need that there wasn't anything available within boxing. And that's not me saying now that actually it's going to be very hard to launch. I think it is very hard to launch a brand now. I think there's so many brands that have come up now. It's not, there's always going to be new ideas of like niches that people can serve.
Especially with AI design now. Because now literally you can get print on demand, the t-shirts and hoodies and whatever. You can get AI graphic design and be like, make me a image of a Doberman in black and white with red eyes or something, and then you can be like generate and then just take that and put that on a t-shirt. So now you're not even just competing with people who have gone to St. Martin's or something. You're competing with literally anyone who can give a prompt to AI.
Exactly. Which is why it's very key not to focus too much on the design at the start. The key is to focus on the niche you're going to serve. Past that point, then obviously designs are imperative. And in answer to your question about how I went about it, obviously I had that boxing niche that I'm trying to go after. And then I had a design background. I was very artsy and graphicsy in school. So, I picked up a pen and paper, draw it out, and figured it out as I went along, working with the suppliers in China. Because I had that experience working at Alibaba. Alibaba wasn't new to me. But I got fired by about four suppliers before we even launched. So I thought it was going to take 3 months, by the way. Again, having dealt on Alibaba, I was like, shit's easy, man. Let's get the brand off the ground. 6 months later, I still haven't got any products here because they're still being made, or there's been products have been sent I'm not happy with. And my friend hit me. He said, like, so you're saying you're going to launch next month, but how are customers going to find you? I was like, I'm going to launch a website. And he's like, yeah, but Ben, how are they going to find that website? You're going to need an Instagram account or something. I'm like, oh shit, yeah, let me launch an Instagram account. Then a year and a half later, it actually launches. So
a year and a half later,
it took me 2 years to launch.
Wow,
it took me 2 years to launch because I was spending so long, like, just trying to get the product right.
Were you putting out any content on the Boxraw accounts or channels?
Exactly.
Or website?
Yeah, and I think that's a key, also a key part of building a brand is that I wasn't, for 2 years, no one knew that we were a boxing brand. People just knew it was boxing, because I was speaking to the community. There was nothing to do with products. I was just using images that I found online.
Really?
Like a theme page.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I was speaking to the community. I was saying things that only they would understand. Having been a boxer and competed, and I think that's why the community really sort of latched onto that. So at point of launch, we had an audience of 20,000 followers, which back then was like a decent amount of followers to have. And yeah, it was a lot of the best way to learn start a brand. I think definitely focus on that niche. Look at the product and see what you want to design, but you need to do loads of reading. There's so much information out there, especially on Shopify blogs. I haven't read a Shopify blog in years now, but that was fundamental to me actually getting off the ground and just understanding the industry, because while I had a lot of experience in boxing and in business, I had no experience in e-com or anything like that.
Yeah. How would you say someone actually goes about finding a niche? Obviously, you had boxing as something that you've had in your life since the age of 12, but how does someone, if they want to start a business but not necessarily know which niche they want to serve, go about actually finding that specific niche where there is a gap in the market?
I think they need to find the niche that they're already a part of.
Okay.
I think if you try and serve a niche which you have no interest in or know nothing about, you'll get found out, because that niche will quickly be like, okay, this person's just here for boxing, just here for business. And I think that's what our market recognized very quickly is that we're more than just an apparel company, and then we speak to the community more so than any other boxing brand out there. So I say, find a niche that actually means something to you. What niches or what groups are you in, and make sure it means something to you. Because the thing is, business is too hard for you to be doing something that actually doesn't excite you. I can't tell you the amount of times that where I'm having a shit day. So that things aren't going well, but as long as I've got that overall vision of where I'm trying to take it, it makes those days a lot easier. So if you're doing a business for the reasons of trying to make money and just do a clothing brand, you're not going to last. You're not going to outlast anyone, because the ones that are actually doing things and making a difference, they're passionate about what they're doing. You can't force yourself into trying to be passionate about, if I tried to do a lacrosse brand, I wouldn't last. I wouldn't last long at all, because it just, when times get hard, you're going to default to being lazy. You're going to default to making excuses and playing the victim.
That's, I think, this whole problem with the whole, and I'm not like shitting on it, but the whole like drop shipping FBA kind of culture, because it's like we've tried drop shipping too, and it's like this whole thing of like, start a business that you think will make you a lot of money.
Yeah.
You don't, you know, you're selling random crap from China that you have no, you know, attachment to or passion about. And then, you know, your first Facebook ad campaign doesn't convert. And then you're like,
it's hard to motivate yourself to keep going with
to keep like looking at the return on ad spend and being like, right, how do I adjust this dog toy? It's like, you know.
Exactly. And I think that's a big problem at the moment, is that everyone's trying to chase being the entrepreneur, right? And there's a big... The goal for everyone seems to be, let's do it as quickly as possible. It's like, why does it need to be quick? It's not meant to be quick in building a brand or, you know, trying to make money. Like, find something. I mean, listen, it's not a bad thing. I think it's great that more people are getting into business. You know, I think there's a surge at the moment. People just trying it, which is great. But it depends on what level you're trying to play at. You know, I'm trying to play at this level. If you're trying to play at that level of just you want to make some cash, and some people recognize that. You know, I've got friends that do drop shipping and they're cool with where they're at. You know, they're not trying to do the same sort of things that I'm doing and have the same goals. But if you've got the goal of really trying to make it and do something big of, you know, importance, meaning, value, legacy, then that's not the right way to do it, in my view. You know, listen, I'm not the finished article. You know, I'm learning day by day. Just my observation.
So you got about 2 years of kind of doing boxing related content while you're waiting for the products to get made.
Yes.
2 years later, you've got the products. What products do you start with first of all? Trackies?
I had 2 tracksuits, in 2 colors. A tracksuit in 2 colors, hoodie in 2 colors, 2 t-shirts in 4 colors, and that was it.
And that whole process, I mean, were you storing it in your house or
in my garage?
In your garage.
That's
okay.
garage, yeah.
And how?
So in one of the garages where we were selling from.
Got you. Okay. And so how much did that 2 year process of all the different iterations and then also to get the actual first batch of the finished ones, how much did that cost?
Because I made a lot of mistakes with the gear and I was quite frivolous, and because I had a lot of, you know, cash reserves with the car sales business, I wasn't as smart as I should have been. I think for the actual ones that launched, maybe, I don't know, 15,000, less than 15,000.
How did you know that when you were ready, when you were about to buy the stock? Because we've had a few people on here already who have made the mistake of putting all their money in stock without knowing that they're actually able to sell it. So how did you avoid that problem?
I didn't avoid the problem. The problem was there.
Right.
I didn't have a clue. You know, I didn't have a clue. And I think sometimes if you try and, like, there's a few kids that I mentor and they try and like foresee every single problem beforehand and be like, how do I know this is going to sell? Like, you're not going to know. You really need to trust your instinct and trust your gut. You know, I was fortunate that actually, because great example here, right, is that I thought all the gear that I launched with, people were going to train in. And actually what happened as I started to give it to different boxes, they were like, Ben, this is too nice to train in. Like, why am I going to train in this? And they just started wearing it outside of the gym. I'm like, no, man, come on, I'm sending it to you. Wear it in the gym so I can get the content. And that was just a learning. It was like, actually, okay, this is more lifestyle focused. Maybe we need to have something a bit more gritty, not as high quality. But I think that naiveness is really, you learn that way. You know, as long as you're introspective and you can look backwards and journal and, you know, do whatever rituals you need to do to be able to look backward and, you know, analyze has it worked or has it not. You're right to just trust your gut and then make the mistakes along the way. Now, that's easy said than done when you've got another business on the side supporting it. Yeah, so I would say it's very important. You can't just jump in and say, right, I've got £10,000 in the bank, I'm ready to start the business. Have something at the same time that's running. You know, I was fortunate, my brother, he was running the car sales business, so all the money we made from that was going into Boxraw. We didn't actually close the car sales business till about a year and a half in, or 2 years in. You know, Boxraw wasn't making any money. I wasn't taking any salary from it. Isaac was basically funding me, funding Boxraw, you know, on the hope that soon we were about to close shop and just focus on Boxraw. So we had 2, you know, streams, which, you know, in this instance, maybe dropshipping could work for people if they want to start their own brand. But have something that can also keep you occupied there.
Would you recommend someone does this alongside a job if they don't have an existing business?
Yeah, 100%. Exactly, and just put the fucking work in. You know, so people all the time are saying, oh, I don't have the time to do the business, because I'm working here. I'm like, yeah, you do. There's 24 hours in a day, like, and especially in your 20s. Like, listen, there's so much out there right now about, you know, the importance of sleep, and I get it, sleep is important. But I can tell you right now, if I wasn't working 20, 21-hour days when I was building Boxraw, I would never have got off the ground. 2 years would have taken me 5 years to get off the ground.
Yeah, I think I was talking with him the other day about this, but I think like there is something to be said for a lack of balance. I was speaking to an entrepreneur the other day and he's like far more successful than us, and he was saying like when you get to a certain level, a lot of these guys are not balanced. They're very over-indexed on work because that's what it takes to play at that level. You know, and they're not always like that. At some point they might over-index more in their family life or their kids or whatever, but when they're in that stage where they're focused on their business, there's no like, well, you know, entrepreneur but still balanced, you know, done by 6. It's like you'll just get smoked by the guy who's doing until 9 or whatever. This might sound like an obvious question, but I'm really curious to know how do you go about getting a manufacturer? Because I feel like I I would have no idea if I had an idea for a product. I have no idea. What do I Google it? What do I Google? How do I know who to look for, what to trust? I have no experience in that. And I think a lot of people would be keen to know that.
Yeah, so I mean, Alibaba was the first one, right? Some of the biggest companies in the world still use Alibaba. When you're searching, you can search for what product you're specifically looking for. What you're going to find there is like 20,000 hits of suppliers in China that are offering the same sort of products. I then recommend filtering by gold supplier, so making sure they've got the accreditation from Alibaba. Check how long they've been in business. You can also filter how long they've been doing gold supplier Alibaba terms. So typically when 7 years or above. Then you want to reach out to about 30 of them with the same sort of copy and paste message. When you're starting out, it's a big thing that I did. This is funny actually. I had loads of alias accounts when I launched Boxraw. So I wasn't reaching out as the founder. I was reaching out from like the production department or production director to try and give the appeal that, or the image that Boxraw was bigger than it was. Because the reality is that the suppliers you speak to start with, they just care about the money, you know. And if you're in a position where you can only buy 100 units, they're not really going to give you the same respect and time and, you know, energy that they'll give someone who's about to buy 1,000 units or an existing brand. I had a coming soon page on Boxraw.com. So when suppliers checked it out, we would just say coming soon. And what I tell them was that our website's being redone, but we're actually already the biggest company selling boxing equipment. And that in itself then allowed me to create relationships with these different suppliers. So you send your blanket message, have key terms in there, things like, you know, what's your MOQ, you know, write the word MOQ, you know, ask the shipping terms, you know.
Which for anyone listening is minimum order quantity.
Yeah. And then shipping terms, is it FOB, is it X works? And you can Google
what does that mean?
So FOB is, I don't even fucking know anymore, like it's fixed on board costs, or X works. You basically pay from the point of the port sending it, or you pay from the point of the factory sending it. So increase in shipping costs and so on. And responsibility of who owns the product. But ask as many questions like that. Ask to see their portfolio, really take an interest in what they do. You're going to get a message back, and from 30 messages, maybe 25 of them are going to respond. From that 25, you don't want to engage with them, and you know, you need to get WeChat if you're dealing in the Far East. That's how they communicate. And what you're looking for in the early steps is you're looking for someone that's actually relationship orientated, someone that actually understands what you're doing, which is why it's very important to be able to sell the vision to them. And that's what I was able to do. You know, I sold the vision to these suppliers and got them bought into what I was doing, and explained the market opportunity, how there was no boxing brands out there, and we were going to take over, and look, we're going to be like the Jordan of boxing.
Is this like messaging over WeChat, you're saying this?
Yeah, messaging over WeChat, or it can be through Alibaba, through the
chat feature.
Yeah, chat feature.
Is there a language barrier?
No, there's not. I think the sales are especially not on text, because also they can translate things.
Right.
Now, there'll be the occasional word which won't, you know, come through. The key thing is just don't speak in slang.
Is there a thing of like, for them, they must get so many people messaging them, or maybe they don't, I don't know, but like when someone's like, we're going to be the next Apple or the next Jordan, they're like, yeah, of course you are, mate.
Yeah, I mean, naturally, but I think maybe that naivety, I mean, it worked for me. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
It worked for me. But the thing is, as well, the suppliers can tell passion. They can tell someone who's actually trying to get their business off the ground and it's going to make a difference. And they'll see that from the designs you give over to them, right? You need to make sure your tech pack looks correct or looks decent. You have a strong website, and even if you haven't launched a website, make sure the coming soon page looks cool. You know, make sure there's an Instagram account there which is showing cool activity.
Because also with the manufacturers themselves, if your product doesn't exist yet, how do you know what when you search for the manufacturers and you're filtering it, they obviously, let's say your product's like a thingamajig and it's like a really squiggly weird plastic shape or something.
Yeah.
On their website they won't have that because that doesn't exist. That's why you're making it. How do you know, like, what are they advertising or displaying that makes you think they're a manufacturer that could make what you want, if that makes sense?
Yeah, 100%. So that's a really good question. First of all, you're not going to know until you ask them. You want to find products that are similar. So if it is a weird octopus made out of plastic, you're going to look for other plastic objects, you know, so I don't know, that like for like, and search for that. And then a lot of these companies will be able to open molds and create anything. But you're not, in that case, you want to ask these questions from the get-go. So the key thing, first of all, is to go to about 30 suppliers.
Yeah.
25 of them are going to respond. From that, what you want to do is judge them based on how they're treating you in the conversation, how quickly they respond, the questions that they're asking you, the information they're providing you. From there, you can whittle it down to about 5. And then you can get into sampling stage. From sampling stage, the ideal is to not pay for samples. Now, a lot of them are going to try and charge you for samples, but again, this is why it's very key to have that relationship with the sales rep you're speaking to and not be transactional. I made the mistake in the first 4 years. And I didn't learn this in Alibaba at the age of 15 because I was buying things I already made. I wasn't customizing anything.
Sure.
But I made the mistake with the suppliers, treating them in the same way, thinking that I was so much better than them. They worked in China and I can speak to them like shit, you know. And I look back at it now, it's horrible, and I don't blame them for firing me. But you speak to them nice, you know, get to know them. They're going to be your friend. Like, we still work with suppliers we worked with from the get-go, you know, from 2 years before when we launched. And we got great relationships with them, you know, and it was, if you're a good judge of character, you'll figure out from the messages if they're nice or if they're not. You know, are they asking you how you are? And it's small things like that. You know, be nice and you'll get a nice person back. From there, you whittle it down. You want to try and get the sample for free. And the only way to do that is to really sell them on the vision and explain, you know, we're going to take the sample fee off the bulk order. They might ask you to pay for shipping, in which case pay for fucking shipping.
So do you have to make a bulk order before you get samples?
No. You can just get the samples from the get-go. But this is another thing with the message, okay? When you're asking for the pricing, don't ask for just 100 pieces if you're only buying 100 pieces. Ask for the price of 250, 500, 1,000, 2,000.
Right.
And then at a later point be like, okay, I want to test the
100.
quality first. This is the first one, the next one will be higher, okay? And then you can just build it that way. Because otherwise, you're shooting yourself in the foot and you're not going to get a quality sample that comes back.
If someone did want to make some sort of, I mean, I guess in this case you could use apparel company as an example. How much do you think they would need, capital-wise?
Capital-wise, now even less.
Yeah.
Now even less. It depends what type of apparel you're trying to do, right? Because for me, everything we launched with was custom developed. So we had to buy rolls and rolls of fabric to be able to get that fabric made. Right, which was unique to us.
And would you buy the fabric and then send that fabric to China to the supplier?
No, so you can do that. You can find fabric suppliers in China and then get it sent, but it's long. The reality is, if you go to the right supplier, there's so many fabric markets out there, they can find it. Same with trims, but which is why it's important to find someone that's really hungry. You know, ideally you want someone that hasn't been in the job too long. They're trying to make a name for themselves, because they're going to earn off your commission, right? So, which is why it's so important to sell them on the vision, because then they're going to put the work into finding the nice trims. To really speak to the fabric markets to say, look, actually, can we customize this? And it was the same for us. Like, I didn't pay the MOQ price of fabric rolls because they betted on this working. I spent time speaking to them, and that was really important. Relationships are so key in the early days, you know. And if you are trying to do something that's going to make a difference, you can't be transactional about it. You know, you need to understand. And I learned this from the car sales business. You know, that relationships are key.
So when you've got your minimum order quantity, you have them in your garage. You launch the website. How long does it take to sell them, and how are you getting your sales? Is it just through pictures of it and sending it to friends? And cause that's the other bit that people I think
sales was so slow. I remember I had this like grand vision that, because Shopify, when you make a sale, goes ka-ching. Yeah. Right, and you can do test orders before, and I had this grand vision, we're going to go launch, and I'm going to hear ka-ching, ka-ching. I'm like, yeah, baby, we made it.
Everyone has that. We've even had that. Yeah, we've even had that.
And in my head, that's what was going to happen. Yeah. And I remember, we launched, and then we launched at like 9 o'clock in the morning. And then 6 p.m, the first sale comes through. And I'm like, yeah. And then I go on the order, and it's someone I know. I'm like, fuck. Yeah.
Anticlimax.
Mate, it was horrible, man. It was horrible. It was horrible. You know, there was so much hype from friends and family. Be like, oh, it's great, because the website looks sick. You know, I spent so long to design the website. And
would you use it on Shopify?
Shopify, yeah. Shop from the get-go, and that was another thing, right? I was trying to save costs. So, you know, while I had cash for the car sales business, I'm still tight. You know, I'm still trying to save as much as I can. So,
paid theme or free theme?
So I paid for the theme, but I didn't pay for the. Basically, what I kept doing, which was a little bit naughty of me, I kept creating a new trial with Shopify with different email addresses. Okay, just so I could use the free features of like building it.
And then you transfer the.
I transfer it over. Yeah.
That's quite smart.
I mean, it took a year and a half for it to be self-sustaining, right?
What do you mean by self-sustaining?
So we did. I think we did. I can't remember now. 11,000 in the first year.
Okay.
The year after that, we did about 180.
Is that orders or products?
Sales and cash.
How do you go from you've got one sale from your mate to then even 11,000, which is an achievement in itself?
I think it's that constant grind, right? We did well from the get go of having like the elite boxes wear our brand. Jordan was actually asking about this on the way down. Is like, because we picture of Dimitri Bivol wearing Boxraw. He's a world champion, the guy who beat Canelo last year. Okay. And he's like, how do you actually get all these guys? So it started from, do you guys remember this, when Snapchat was a big thing and people had these Snapchat QR codes that they used to post on like Instagram?
Okay.
People would like take a photo of it, and then it's before QR codes were a thing, right? That's how like Snapchat grew. And during that 2 years, I had all these fake email accounts. And I reach out to different boxers or their managers and be like, okay, we're Boxraw, and they can see the Instagram account was popping, you know. And in the grand scheme of boxing, Boxraw was a big Instagram account, right? We had more followers than some, you know, champion boxers, because they just weren't that focused on it. So I'd reach out and say, look, we've got this Snapchat account. Would you like to do a Snapchat takeover? We've got 100,000 people on the Snapchat, and obviously we didn't have fucking anything on the Snapchat, but I knew they wouldn't know. And then one boxer, Andre Berto, agreed to take it over, the Snapchat, who was a world champion boxer, fought Floyd Mayweather. And he took it over, and I'd have 10, you know, alias Snapchat accounts. I'd be logging in, logging out, sending messages, logging out, send another message from another account. So they're thinking, oh shit, this community's popping. And he did it, and we had obviously the content from that. And then obviously he posted on his Instagram to say, look, follow me on Snapchat. Yeah. And then we went to the next boxer, then it was Deontay Wilder.
Wow.
Deontay Wilder. So he took over the Snapchat. He posted on his Instagram saying he's taking over Boxraw Snapchat.
Damn.
And then I had this archive within a couple of months of like 2 world champion boxers wearing it, and I just went boxer to boxer, be like, take over our Snapchat. We've got 70 followers, and we still hadn't got big followers on there at that point. And
I'm still logging in and out.
I'm still logging in and out, trying to build this community. And then the Olympians all took over at Rio. So I went to the Team GB, went to Team USA. They would take over. So by the time of launch, the whole boxing community knew Boxraw because of these little Snapchat screenshots that they would post on their Instagram saying, hey, follow Boxraw TV, I'm taking over the Snapchat, day in the life. And yeah, so we'd already built up some notoriety, and I built up the contacts within boxing at that point. People didn't know, and I was so quiet about it, about what Boxraw was. They just saw an Instagram account, and I was private because they weren't dealing with me. I never told them that I was the founder or CEO. I just said I'd work for the company, or one day I'd be Lorenzo, who was the shipping director, or one day I'd be the brand director doing this. And so they just thought, oh, Boxraw was fucking big, and they're doing something really cool. So at point of launch, I had all these contacts. I was like, right, we're a clothing company now, guys. Let me send you some products. And because I already built up that repertoire with them and had built the community around the niche, speaking to boxers. One, they knew that I knew boxing. 2, they loved the product. And then 3, I'd already kind of built a relationship up at that point. And then I slowly came clean with the boxers. I was like, okay, right, I have to tell you, actually, I'm a one-man band operating from my mum's house in my bedroom. They were like, oh, no way, we thought you were this. Like, who the fuck is Lorenzo? I'm like, there's no Lorenzo, it's just me.
There is no Lorenzo.
And I always used to pick the exotic names, so they think it was really international.
Carlos.
Okay.
Yeah. But it worked, and I don't recommend it now necessarily, but
you got to hustle, man.
You have to hustle.
Yeah,
you have to find a way. You have to find a
do.
way to build a community, and perception is everything, especially when you get it off the ground. Now we don't. Now our perception is our reality. We don't fudge anything. We don't speak to people from fake email accounts. But to get things off the ground, you have to do that sort of stuff.
So with that, were you basically just reiterating that then to get from 11 to 180?
Exactly. So the more boxes, I send it to them, and then they'd be featured on it.
And while they're doing it, are they wearing the product?
Yeah, then they're wearing the product. Then they're starting to wear the product now. And then that Snapchat story started to fizzle off. I think Instagram stories came out slowly after.
Yeah.
In the background, I'm thinking I came up with stories way before this, with my previous app. It just like, I suppose, snowball's the wrong word, because I still don't feel like we've ever snowballed. But yeah, we just try staying true to the market, serving them, speaking to them.
Do you have any thoughts on marketing? Especially in
what
this
type
day
of
and age?
marketing?
Well, I guess I'd say, my inclination is to go towards social media, because obviously that's where content is king and all that. But I also feel like, because it's so saturated with TikTok and Instagram, and everyone understands kind of copywriting more than they used to. Everyone understands narratives, but as you said, it's so saturated. I mean, I don't use Instagram that much, but when I do, I get all sorts of ads for clothing companies and stuff. And some of them look dope, and some of them I'm like, you've just taken an edgy phrase, put it in French or something, and now it's like a fucking hype brand or something.
Exactly.
There's a million of those.
Yeah.
So I don't understand necessarily how brands could stand out. Is your content mostly product based, or is it more like inspo based?
So we have content pillars, which center around education of boxing, obviously product, trying to show the product, throwbacks in terms of old history boxing. But the key, it all comes back to value add. How can you add value to your community? You can add value to community by educating them. If you are a fashion brand, then you just need to show the product in a fashionable way, right? But my thing is all about the niche, the community you're trying to serve. So the content, if you, rather than thinking about the end result of the content, think about the intent behind the content, which is how do you grow that community? You're going to do that for education.
And what if you're trying to educate that audience, but you're not necessarily getting the traction that you would hope for once you're putting that content out?
I challenge whether or not you're actually educating them then.
Okay.
Versus just saying something which is so generic, which they don't learn from. And we're going through this at the moment. We used to be very, very heavy on education and talking so much about boxing history, but it almost went the other way, whereby we looked like a boxing page, what we were before we launched. So we had to try and rein things back into let's focus on the product now, because our brand needs to be about trying to make sales and so on. But it almost went too far the other way. So literally, as of yesterday, we decided, actually, guys, I was at boxing last night, had a half an hour conversation about boxing, and we stepped away thinking, fuck yeah, I can go in deep about boxing now. Why the fuck are we not talking about this? This is interesting, because people would stop in the gym and they'd join into the conversation because they found it interesting. And we're now going to go not the complete other way we were before, but just a bit more premise around the education factor. So listen, we haven't nailed it. I haven't nailed it. I'm not the best marketeer. I know boxing. I know how to talk about boxing. That's what I'm good at. I'm not the best at doing content for the purpose of trying to sell products.
Yeah. If you had to give advice to someone on some of the biggest mistakes that you've made to get Boxraw to where it is today, whether it's one piece of advice, whether it's 5 pieces of advice, what would you say to anybody listening?
Number one is know your finances. Like, really, my whole mentality with Boxraw from the get-go was, I'm not going to worry too much about the cost because all I care about is selling, you know. But yeah, that can get you in a lot of trouble, you know, later on down the line. It has got me into trouble numerous times because I haven't been watching the numbers. We've just been spending, and not spending in a frivolous way, you know, personally. It's just like within the business, investing in certain things, and actually doesn't make sense. Use data to help you inform buys. Don't use data too much to the extent whereby it takes away your creativity and initiative and gut feeling on things. We bought so much product which we just didn't need, you know, because intuition said to me, oh yeah, we can sell 2,000 of them, you know, and it just makes absolutely zero sense. And then you're stuck on the gear we've had product that we've been sitting on in clearance, you know, it's gone through 4 Black Fridays, you know. It's like, what's the worst possible product buy, you know? And it gets to a point where you need to be looking at the numbers. And certain people gave me advice from the start about, you need to get a merchandiser in that can actually look at the daily sales run rates of products so you can inform buys. And I wish I had done that, you know, 3 years sooner than that, because it would have saved us so much money.
Yeah.
Obviously we mentioned how Nike, you know, started off as athletics, you know, well, running really. And then with the Jordan situation, they went into basketball shoes, and now Nike does just general athletic wear, and they also do, you know, casual wear. Is there any temptation for you to almost do, I don't know, MMA gear or something, you know?
There has been in the past, and actually for a few years, maybe as of 2 years ago, I was, you know, we were seeding out a lot. We have a lot of UFC champions wear the products, you know, they're fans of the brand, they're friends of the brand, but it's not a focus point past the point of like just, you know, having the relationship there. If they need gear when they're in camp, we send it to them. But focus is a big thing, you know. I think after 2 years or 3 years, maybe it was even 4 years, you know, we started to win a lot of awards, and, you know, our sales growth was recognised by the Sunday Times and stuff. We're like, okay, now the time is to expand and become this big, gigantic company. And it's actually, we've still got so much more work to do. So there's zero temptation now. Like, I'm very focused, you know, because I have split time and energy across trying to go into MMA. And it just doesn't make sense. I don't know MMA, you know. Yeah. I remember having a call with Cody Garbrandt to try and get some advice about gloves for MMA, you know, and he's talking to me. I'm like, he's giving me that information. I'm like, no, I need to be focusing just on the boxing glove. Why am I trying to do 2 gloves at the same time? You know, it sounds great because I've been able to have a phone call with this MMA champion and so on. But no, I think my maturity now forces me to focus, you know, really focus on what matters and makes a difference.
Yeah. And what is the end goal with Boxraw?
I don't know if there's an end goal with Boxraw. I think having been in business for such a long time, you know, not just with Boxraw, I'm going to get really philosophical now, right?
Go for it.
The idea of dying scares me, right? I know that we have one life, you know, so my goal is to try and live the life to my full extent. But the idea of keeping something that's going to live on past my existence, that excites the hell out of me. Like the idea
legacy.
The idea of being able to create a legacy brand, you know, and something can continue to evolve and bring more people into the sport of boxing. Like, the goal is to be the reason why the world got into boxing, right? That's not something that I'm going to achieve in my lifetime. That's something that I could do, though, through creating a company that has the right tech, the right apparel, the right equipment, that could continue to bring more people into the sport and shift that narrative. That's the goal. Usually when people say, what's the goal, you know, is there an exit strategy? I want to take the company public, you know, just naturally for the sake of, you know, for me to be able to bring the world into boxing, you need a certain level of size where I have the company to be able to do that. But there's no financial goals. You know, I've been not rich, but I've had cash at a young age, you know, and it doesn't make you happy. You know, it didn't make me happy. It was very empty. I remember just buying the next car, the next watch. I remember, you know, I had a Porsche 22, you know, Range Rover, Bentley 25, and it's like, I'm so excited about getting them. I get them and I'm like, what do I do now? Let me just show off to a friend. It's meaningless, you know. The idea of being able to create value and really trying to change the world and like add value to the world, that excites me, man, you know. Of course, you've got financial goals, you know. Of course, there's certain numbers you want to hit, you know, by certain times, and you know. But I'm trying to turn it into $1 billion company. I will turn it into $1 billion company. You know, that's what I'm doing this for. There's no exit strategy. I'm mature enough now to know that I've hit the jackpot in the sense of I am getting to work on a company that I fucking love. You know, that really excites me. That's been able to invoke, you know, emotion within a community which previously wasn't, you know, served. So I wouldn't change that for anything. You know, unless. Listen, if suddenly next year I'm like, okay, I don't like boxing anymore, I like hockey, then yeah, of course I'll change it. But no, I can't see myself doing anything differently. You know, the goal is to let this company live on.
Dude, this has been
It's
been a
fascinating.
really well-rounded conversation. Very value-packed as well.
Yeah.
Dude, super. If this was a meal, it would be like high protein. You know what I mean? This is like
This is a meal. It would be high protein.
yeah,
We'll put that in the intro.
super like value-dense interview. You know what I mean? Our producer's cracking up, but it's true, bro. Especially like that, like the Ali stuff about like how to find suppliers, how to mesh them. I mean,
Yeah,
dude,
that's really useful.
so
That's really
valuable.
useful.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time, man. We wrap up with the same question every single time, which is obviously, as we've said, we're about the practical, adding practical value. So for anyone that might be looking to start a business, if there was one piece of practical, actionable advice that you could give, so not like, you know, work hard and believe in yourself, but something practical on any subject, what would it be?
There's a book and a YouTube video, TED Talk. You guys might know it. Start with Why, the Golden Circle.
Simon Sinek, yeah.
Simon Sinek. I'd say start with that. I'd say don't chase the cash to start with. Chase actually what you're passionate about. As I said before, business gets too hard for you to just be doing things for the money. So first figure out the niche you want to serve, or if it's not even a niche you want to serve, figure out actually what makes you happy, and try and find somewhere or something in that which is gonna make you cash. No, it's not. Listen, I don't agree with do what makes you happy and you'll find success in. You won't, right?
Yeah.
Because actually, I don't get happy by having to do, look over accounts and, shit like that. But I found like a narrative, which was boxing, that I was able to try and figure out business within that. Try and find that first, because I think businesses that are going to survive now, especially now more than ever, in a very turbulent time, it's going to be the ones that actually stand for something and mean something.
Amazing. Dude, thank you so much, man. That's your camera over there. Where can people find you?
I'm on Instagram, ben.amanna. I'm on YouTube as of 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, Ben's a YouTuber now.
I'm a
He started a
YouTuber now.
vlog.
Yeah. I saw I'm on LinkedIn as well, ben.amanna, I think. It's all the same.
Amazing.
Hit me up.
Awesome.
And Boxraw?
And Boxraw, of course.
Yeah, where can people find Boxraw?
BORXAW, boxraw.com.
Amazing. Ben, thank you so much, man. Really
Thank you,
appreciate
guys.
the time.
Really
It's an
good.
awesome
Thank you.
interview.
Appreciate the chat. Thank
Appreciate you
you.
coming on.
No, thank you.